Now this is a story about Bertold Krasenstein, super-therapist. And, you know, as a super-therapist, his domain is the freaky world of the collective unconscious. He was a guy who could take a voyage inside the deep and the dark and the unexplored terrain inside your mind. That's the sort of guy he is. Who knows what a person finds when he floats down the stream of consciousness into the kingdom of the id, inside your mind. You wouldn't want to go there, maybe. Yeah, that usually suppressed id. That place that Freud said was full of unbridled lust and fun times. Well, Bertold Krasenstein knew about the id because he was a super-therapist. And see this woman here? Whoa, see what she's doing? She knows all about the id. And this guy here's clearly got no idea about his id. None whatsoever. But together, let's discover how Bertold Krasenstein solved his greatest psychological challenge of his career, when he rescued the most tragic mummy's boy in the history of the world, Oedipus Rex. It was a day like any other, and like the sun was shining and the birds were chirping and the plumbing in Bertold Krasenstein's bathroom here was making its usual gurgling sounds, like this. It's something to do with narrow drains, no one's really sure, but all Bertold knew was that the plumber had retired in Acapulco on what Bertold had paid him over the years. Bertold Krasenstein, he was putting the finishing touches on his latest research paper. Is love a neurotic dependency need, or is it just something mushy and schmaltzy and schnuggly? And suddenly he heard this. Yeah, this sound, this noise, this thunder. Here's a storm, and here's me, I've left the washing on the line. But before he could call his mother to remind her to take it in, all at once, into his office, marched a Greek chorus, this one here. You could tell they were Greek, because occasionally they'd break into Greek circle dancing and plate smashing. And then with this wail, they spoke in one voice. They said, "Ah!" Something like that, on and on and on. Frightening. You could tell immediately they were in bad shape, because this was a cri du coeur of deep psychic trauma. And at once, Bertold could see what was necessary. "Group hug!" he cried. Stat! Because in front of him was one of the worst cases of group hysteria he'd ever encountered. And besides, he was worried that all that gnashing of the teeth and the sobbing and the screaming was definitely going to get old Mrs. McDougal from downstairs banging on a ceiling with a broomstick. He passed out brown paper bags and he told the chorus to count to 10 and breathe deeply into them. And slowly, the Greek chorus normalized to its usual tone of doom and gloom. "Save us from our fate," they cried. Like that, yeah, exactly like that, with a haunting sound. And Bertold, he wondered if they were in the right place, because he was no Hercules like to save Greek choruses. Though he had to admit he had a lot of strength in his index fingers, due to using them on the keyboard when he typed with 2 fingers. "We beg you, we cannot bear to witness what we must witness." That's what they said. And Bertold Krasenstein, he was tempted to say, "So don't look." But instead his curiosity got the better of him and he said, "What?" And they said one word, Oedipus. And there was certainly a lot of reverb on that word though. And then he knew that this was the Greek chorus fated to witness the most dramatic plot known to man. The tale of poor Oedipus Rex who'd murdered his father and married his mother and then he'd blinded himself when he found out. Bertold Krasenstein, he was a super-therapist. Some might say he had like a messiah, a savior sort of a complex, but it doesn't matter. He was compelled to help the psychologically damaged. Fearlessly and excitedly, he grasped the challenge ahead. It was dangerous, but he knew what had to be done. "Chorus," he said, I'll rescue Oedipus Rex from his terrible destiny." Even though he knew full well he had an appointment with his accountant at 12 noon, which he'd have to cancel to do that. See, the truth about Bertold Krasenstein, inside, he didn't like to let people down. People like Greek choruses, for instance. Even if he hadn't lodged a tax return in 5 years, he didn't care. The chorus, it went wild. We were repaid with joy, and they began dancing in circles until they threw up all over his African violence. To himself, Bertold Krasenstein, he made a mental note that in future he should only accept payment by check and never by dancing. He told the chorus, wait for me here and don't touch anything. And if they were hungry and thirsty, they could order in spanakopita and ouzo from the Greek cafe down the road. And if you don't return from the perilous task, they asked. If he didn't return, he told them to cancel his subscriptions to the New England Journal of Medicine and Penthouse magazines. He was off to Thebes to rescue Oedipus and to still the inner turmoil of the Greek chorus. And no danger like mortal or supernatural was going to stop him. There was no way. The phone, it rang and he picked it up. It was his mother. What time are you coming home to eat, she asked. I don't know, maybe in a week. Maybe never. I'll wait till you get here before I start. And you wouldn't want me to starve. And then she hung up. But not even guilt could stop Bertold Krasenstein, super-therapist. We got on this plane, yeah, this one, and at a certain point, the pilot gave him a parachute and said, jump. And so he did. And he landed here, and he went through this door, and then he went down this road and got into a train, which got him to here, and then he hired a car, which he drove to here, because then the road ran out, so he leased a camel from this man, and then a horse, like a magical horse or something, which took him to here, and then a unicorn, or from this guy, or I think it was a unicorn, it was some sort of magic donkey or something which flew him here and until he got onto this winged beast. Maybe it was a griffin or a centaur or a flying goose, I can't quite remember, I don't remember. And it took him to this desert, and he leapt into this burrow, I think this one here, and he went all the way down until he arrived here, and he exited and he got onto this, and he rode a little while until he arrived here and got onto this, and then he went onto that, and he got inside, and this took him to here, and he took a break because he was exhausted, and he ate this for lunch, and he had a glass of water, he drank it like this. And then it was time for him to walk the rest of the way to Thebes. And as he was walking along to his destination, he was stopped by this Sphinx, this one here. And the Sphinx said, I have a riddle for you. Answer it or die. Yeah, like his life, it hung in the balance, but he didn't waver. He explained he was on his way to Thebes on a mission to rescue Oedipus Rex, and he had no time for riddles. And the Sphinx said, then you must die, and it raised its paw to crush him. And he said, hang on. I'm Bertold Krasenstein, super-therapist, and I ask the questions. So he asked this to the Sphinx. What was your childhood like? And the Sphinx said, you know, the usual. Absent father who never took me to the circus, and an overprotective mother. So he gave some Xanax to the Sphinx, and these calmed it down and allayed its murderous impulses. And finally he reached the gates of Thebes. No, not there, those gates, there. But the gates, they were locked. But he'd come so far that like a locked gate wasn't going to stop him. And he pounded it at the gate, and the gatekeeper poked his head out and said, look, whatever you're selling, we're not buying. And he explained he was no door-to-door salesman. He was Bertold Krasenstein, super-therapist, on a mission. And the gatekeeper said, look, you know, we've got enough crackpot philosophers and prophets and pseudo-therapists in Thebes. Super-therapist, not pseudo-therapist. Whatever. Anyway, besides, there was a plague in the city, so it was best that, you know, Bertold be on his way. But Bertold put his foot forward to stop the gate being slammed shut, and he said, I'm here to see Oedipus. And the gatekeeper said, look, Oedipus is busy trying to solve a murder. And Bertold explained cryptically in a Greek way, the murderer you seek is the son of the murdered man. And the gatekeeper said, look, everyone you meet babbles in circles, and you get a migraine trying to work it out. And though Bertold, he abhorred trickery and skullduggery, sometimes for reason it doesn't work. He knew it was only a short matter of time before Oedipus would discover his true and terrible secret identity. And look, the Sophocles play itself only lasts, what, an hour and a half, an hour and 3/4. He figured he had like 30 minutes max to get to Oedipus. So he got past the gatekeeper like this. in this cartoonesque way. And he was inside Thebes, and rising before him was this magnificent palace, and he knew that was where Oedipus would be, by this spooky and this dramatic music. And so he's made his way to this golden entrance. Yeah, this one. Yeah, not that. Yeah, this one. And there was Oedipus Rex, Oedipus the king. He was a little shorter than Bertold had imagined, but then again, everyone looks taller in a Greek myth. And this is what he was saying to the gathered, cheering crowd. He was saying, "You're all a bunch of nincompoops." And Bertold called out to him and said, "Oedipus Rex, I'm Bertold Krasenstein, Super-Therapist. Hear me out before it's too late." And Oedipus said, "Who's this nutcase in a tweed jacket?" And Bertold asked him for a moment of his time, and Oedipus said, "The kingdom's falling to pieces, the oracles are demanding a pay rise, my ulcer's eating me up alive. What do you want? It's not what I want, but what I can offer you. I'll tell you what I want. One good night's sleep without being driven crazy by the furies about this murder." Bertold explained that there was only one way. And he clapped his hands and disappeared. Yeah, this line of beautiful dancing girls. Young girls, and they were luscious and they were inviting and enticing. And Oedipus said, "What are you, insane? My wife's going to kill me if she catches me ogling nubile dancing girls." And Bertold said, "That's exactly it, Oedipus. The solution, leave your wife. She's too old for you anyway." And Oedipus said, "What are you talking about, super smarty pants? We love each other. What do you think love is?" And then Bertold realized the flaw in his logic. Love! Like his hubris that had got in the way. He couldn't see that Oedipus wouldn't heed his advice. Of course not, because of love. That neurotic dependency need. Or was it that schnuggly wuggly bootsy wootsy boo feeling? What was love? That love, yeah. So Bertold Krasenstein did what he always did when he needed to think. He sang Tiptoe Through the Tulips on his ukulele. Yeah, Oedipus had given him an idea though. This was the ancient mythical world, so the solution had to be ancient and mythical. And it was a pre-Nietzschean era, and God wasn't yet dead, of course. He was in the times of the gods and the goddesses and prophecies and oracles. That's right, so he thought, when in Rome, do as the Romans. And even though he was fully aware that Rome hadn't yet been built in a day, or whatever the saying, it's nothing, anyway. And so he took a ride on this chariot, yeah, this one here, and he sniffed this magic ancient Greek herb, and it's really garlic, but anyway, it further fortified him, and it reminded him of his favorite Greek dish, moussaka. Falling, he found himself there at Apollo's oracle at Delphi. And the oracle, being an oracle, was expecting him and said, "What's your question, Bertold Krasenstein, Super-Therapist?" And that's what the oracle has said to him. "And how can I speak to Apollo?" And the oracle said, "I speak for Apollo." And Bertold suggested that maybe that sounded delusional. And the oracle said, "You think?" And Bertold told the oracle, yeah, like hearing voices and seeing apparitions, it sounded pretty psychotic. Cuckoo, cuckoo, woo! And for a cure, Bertold said, maybe the oracle needed a long rest, maybe less time hanging around the rocky slopes here at Delphi, more time hanging around pretty maidens in town. The oracle took his advice and ambled off whistling "Thank Heavens for Little Girls," which made Bertold think he should warn the local primary school. And pretty soon, Apollo arrived. "Where's my oracle? This isn't his day off." And Bertold Krasenstein introduced himself, and Apollo said, "Look, sorry, I don't talk to mere mortals." But Bertold, he explained he was a super-therapist, and Apollo said, "Like Superman?" And Bertold said, "Well, sort of, except with a bigger brain and smaller muscles and, no funny costume." And Bertold, he went on to plead poor Oedipus's plight, how the gods had condemned him to kill his father and to marry his mother, poor Oedipus. Apollo explained that had been like a committee decision, one particularly dull day when nothing much was really happening. And it was a decision that he had no power to overturn. And Bertold said to Apollo, Apollo had the power to separate love and sex. Yeah, and then Oedipus could leave his mother, who was also his wife. Love and sex are forever intertwined. That might not be such a good idea. I mean, look at Oedipus. Look, I see your point. But love and sex together, it's a beautiful thing, and I'm not tampering with it. But Bertold said, well, he knew someone who would tamper with it, and he closed his super-therapist's eyes. And with all his super-therapist power, he summons the only god who could help, Dionysus. And Apollo was really annoyed. He said, I hate that guy. And Dionysus appeared, and he was in a really grumpy mood. I was in the middle of an orgy. And Bertold explained he needed Dionysus' help in separating love and sex and freeing Oedipus and thus mankind from particularly dysfunctional family issues. And the family issues were already bad enough without that being thrown in. Who put love and sex together in the first place? And Bertold, he pointed to Apollo, who looked like sheepish. That sissy I might have known. Who you calling a sissy, you redneck? And in a split second they were fighting, and the whole earth, it shook like this. Yeah, not like that, no, like this, yeah, like that, shaking. And the battle, like, it raged on and on until finally Bertold Krasenstein had to break it up. And Bertold said, that's enough, you two, act your age and not your shoe size. And at that point, they began hitting each other with wheelchairs and with walkers. Finally, like a referee, he blew this whistle. Time out, Bertold said. Let's have a truce. What if sometimes love and sex are intertwined, and sometimes they're not? Balanced, as they say. That's the Greek way. And Dionysus and Apollo, well, finally they agreed. They shook hands and they signed a pact. And Dionysus toasted Apollo with 100% pure alcohol rum. And Apollo, he sang a poem to Dionysus, and the poem went something like this. It said, roses are red and violets are blue. The solution to love is never having sex with you. He saved Oedipus. His mission, it was accomplished. And on his way back to his office, he swung through Thebes, and there was Oedipus arm in arm with a nubile girl. And there was his mother yelling, Oedipus, put on a sweater, you'll catch cold. And the natural order of things that had been restored. And so Bertold, he got back to his office, and it was a mess, and there were crumbs of spanakopita all over his papers, and the chorus, well, there was nowhere in sight. But there was a note on his desk, and it read, thanks for everything. Have been urgently called to be in Medea. Wish us luck. Medea, the woman who murders her children in a jealous rage when her husband, he leaves her for a younger model. Now, that was a woman who needed the services of Bertold Krasenstein, super-therapist, if ever there was one. But before he could consider his plan of action, the phone rang, and it was his mother. Where are you? I've been waiting for ages. I've been rescuing Oedipus Rex. And that's more important than your own mother, she said, and she slammed down the phone. And as Bertold hurried to go to his mother, he had a breakthrough. He thought to himself, maybe, sometimes even Bertold Krasenstein, super-therapist, can be blind.